All right, today we are jumping into a really fascinating concept from the Educational Psychology Review. It's called classroom carrying capacity. And honestly, it might just flip the script on how you think about the dynamics of learning in any classroom. So let's get right into it.
It's a question that has been bugging educators and parents forever, right? You've got one teacher, one room, the same exact curriculum, but the student outcomes can be completely different. So what is really going on? Well, it turns out the answer might not just be about the student, but about the entire environment itself.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to stop thinking of a classroom as just, a room with desks. We need to start seeing it as a living, breathing ecosystem. Think of it like a little world with all these interacting parts. And that one little shift in perspective, that is the key to this whole framework. And to really build on that ecosystem idea, the researchers behind this got their inspiration from a pretty unexpected place: biology. Specifically, from something as simple as a fishbowl.
So, in biology, carrying capacity is a super fundamental idea. For a fishbowl, it's pretty simple. It's the maximum number of fish that little environment can keep healthy and alive. And it's all determined by things like the amount of oxygen in the water, the food available, and just the overall water quality.
Now this is the crucial part. It's not just about how many fish you can physically cram into the bowl. It's about how many can actually be healthy, how many can thrive. See, carrying capacity isn't about mere survival, it's about the quality of life. The big takeaway here is that the quality of the environment is what really truly matters.
And here's where it gets really cool. This analogy maps almost perfectly onto a classroom. The students, they're the fish. The teacher's attention, which is a limited resource, that's the oxygen. The books and worksheets and iPads, that's the food. And the overall classroom climate, the vibe, how kids treat each other, that's the water quality. When you look at it this way, the classroom really does start to look a lot like that fishbowl.
All right, so using that fishbowl idea as the foundation, the researchers went ahead and totally redefined carrying capacity, but this time specifically for the world of education.
And here is the new definition. I want you to notice the really big change here. We've moved from the maximum number of individuals to the maximum quality of support. It's not about how many kids can fit into the room anymore. It's all about the classroom's deep down ability to provide the resources needed for every single student to thrive, not just academically, but emotionally too.
So, what determines this capacity? Well, just like in our fishbowl, it's a constant balancing act. On one side, you've got resources. These are all the good things that boost the classroom's ability to support students. But on the other side, you've got limiting factors, all the stressors and challenges that drain that capacity. It's the push and pull between these two that really defines how healthy a classroom is.
Now, to make this idea really practical, the framework breaks down all those resources and limiting factors into 4 distinct, but totally interconnected, areas or domains. And getting a handle on these is how you start to see the entire picture.
So here are the 4 domains at a glance: external, collective, teacher, and student. You can already see how each one has things that can either boost or drain that carrying capacity. It's a really powerful way to see how everything is connected. So let's break each one of these down.
First up, we have external factors. These are things happening outside the 4 walls of the classroom that have a direct impact on what happens inside. Things like great support from the school principal, a safe community, strong partnerships with parents, even things like a quiet building versus a noisy one. All that can make a huge difference in a classroom's capacity to support learning. Next is the collective domain. This is all about the classroom as a whole group. For instance, a room where a lot of students are struggling with behavior puts a massive strain on the teacher's attention and energy. But a classroom with really positive peer relationships and plenty of books and supplies, well, that boosts the carrying capacity for absolutely everyone in the room.
And of course, the teacher is absolutely central to this. This domain covers everything the teacher brings to the table: their experience, their confidence, their teaching style, and, this is a big one, their own well-being. A teacher who is totally burnt out just has fewer personal resources to give, and that directly lowers the whole classroom's carrying capacity. The researchers actually call the teacher the invisible hand that shapes the entire ecosystem. And finally, we get to the individual student. Every child walks into that classroom with their own unique mix of resources and limiting factors. A student who got a good night's sleep and feels supported at home, they're bringing in resources. On the other hand, a student who's dealing with hunger or stress at home is bringing in limiting factors that are going to draw heavily on the classroom support system.
Okay, so this is a really fascinating model, right? But here's the billion-dollar question. How do we actually use it? How do we take this from being a cool idea to being a practical tool that actually helps teachers and students on the ground?
One of the most important things to get from this research is that a classroom's carrying capacity isn't some fixed number. It's not set in stone. It's a living, breathing, dynamic system that's constantly changing. And that means the balance of resources and limiting factors can be shifted. And that's exactly what makes this whole idea so hopeful and so powerful. We can actually do something about it.
And here's the game plan. Step 1. You assess the classroom across all 4 of those domains we talked about. You figure out what's helping and what's hurting. Step 2. You visualize that information. Maybe it's a chart that immediately shows you, hey, this classroom has a really strong teacher, but the external support is really weak. And finally, step 3, and this is the game changer, you target your support. Instead of some one-size-fits-all solution, you can put resources exactly where that specific ecosystem needs them the most.
When you boil it all down, this whole framework is asking us to make a pretty big shift in our thinking. It's about moving away from just managing behavior and delivering curriculum. It's about becoming intentional cultivators of an environment, a healthy, thriving ecosystem where every single student has what they need to flourish. And that really just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This framework gives us this powerful new lens, a new way to see what's happening in our classrooms. It shows us what to look for and where we can help. So the real question for all of us, for teachers, for parents, for school leaders, is what do we do with this knowledge? How do we become better gardeners for our classroom ecosystems starting today?